I am absolutely amazed that so many community members have come out on an 80-degree day in October. So first of all, thank you for being here, and thank you to our host, West Lane Middle School, for having us. I know it's always an extra work to host community in your building at night, and we appreciate that. I am Dr. Woodson, and there's lots of new faces, but there's some new ones too. So we're just going to go over some background information before we get started. Those of you who were with us in September at our central office, some of this may be repeat, but we're doing this to make sure everyone's on the same page before we dive into the feedback portion, which Dr. Milliman will facilitate. The first thing I want you to do is grab this blue card on your table, and we want to make sure you're sitting with a mixed group of stakeholders from Washington Township. So if you are sitting with all parents, for instance, maybe get up and change to a new table, or ask someone from another table to come join yours, but take a few seconds and look at that blue card. As you continue to organize yourselves, I want to give you a quick preview. We start right on time, and last time we ended early, and tonight may be a another opportunity to end early. It all depends on how lengthy your conversations and your feedback goes. So it's possible we'll be out of here early. We're going to start again with those introductions and just a way to set the tone for our conversation. And then we're going to go into studying about the school calendar. Last time we did two pieces. We gave feedback on the strategic plan, and we talked about the school calendar. Tonight we are solely going to focus on the school calendar. We will revisit the strategic plan at the November Advisory Council. What we're doing, which is on our website, everything you did at our last Advisory Council is on our website, by the way. So if those who could not attend, make sure you tell them they can. Check out all the information there. But all the feedback you gave on the strategic plan and on the school calendar is available on our website, unedited. We did not, try to change anyone's wording. It's just as you gave it, that's how it's posted. So what we are doing right now is we're synthesizing that information on the strategic plan, grouping it by division of the school district, and having discussions about that. So we will come back to you in November with some more detailed questions about the feedback that you gave. But we appreciate the feedback, but we're working behind the scenes on that. So this advisory council will be focused on the school calendar, and you're going to have lots of opportunity for feedback. Before we get to that part, and I hand the mic to Dr. Milliman, I do want you guys to introduce yourselves to people at your table, and then I'm going to set the tone for our feedback. So looking up here, there's three simple things. Tell us your name at your table. Tell us what role you play. What stakeholder role are you playing here tonight? Are you a parent? Are you a staff member? Are you an administrator? Are you a business community member? Just tell us the role, and then what about the school calendar is most important to you. Ooh, most. That's hard. So take a few minutes at your table again to go around, and during the introductions, if you find, oh my goodness, we have a table full of parents, then come and sprinkle yourselves at some of these other tables. We want tables with broad-based stakeholders represented. I am going to plug forward. If you have group members who did not yet get to introduce themselves, start with that first when we start the feedback portion, but we've got groups of all different sizes here. I do want to set the tone. Those of you who were with us last time, this will be redundant. You can give this next time. But I want to make sure we're all on the same page about what this group is. So I do want to share again our understanding of the objectives of this Washington Township Advisory Group. We are advisory. This isn't a decision-making group. We have other decision-making governing bodies in the district that do the decision-making. This is advisory only. We are going to tackle district-wide, very focused and specific issues. We aren't going to deal with very building-specific issues or classroom-specific issues, grade or program-specific issues. These are big, huge district-wide issues that are decided upon ahead of time. Obviously, we want broad-based stakeholders. We have wonderfully supportive groups in our district who function and have functioned for decades and decades, but they're very homogenous groups. So student government is very, very strong in our district, but they're all students who come around the table to discuss issues. Or parent council is a very powerful group, but they're all parents who come around the table to talk about something. So the purpose of this is to have broad-based stakeholders coming around the table talking about big, huge district issues. We want multiple voices and perspectives. We don't want people here who all agree on one calendar. That would not be rich for our decision making. We need multiple perspectives around the table to give us rich feedback. We also have determined our study topics for this current calendar year, which is the strategic plan we've already mentioned, school calendar, which we're focusing on tonight, and student school hours, which will be coming up this fall. We have our dates. If you ever have a question about them, I know it's confusing with the locations and the times, but we change those based on feedback. Some people said, I can't do 4:30, it's too early. Other people said 4:30 is the perfect time. So we said, let's just alternate to make sure everybody's needs are met. Some people said, don't keep it at central office off of 86th Street because that's not close to my house. So we varied the locations around the district to try to make it as accessible to all stakeholders as possible. So if you ever get confused as what time, what location, always refer to the website. It's directed on the front page. So the ground rules, that's the yellow card you have in front of you. We want to go over these every meeting to make sure, again, we're all on the same page. Every single person has a voice at your table. We're not doing an open mic, share your thoughts on calendar, because when that happens, very strong voices get heard and some more passive voices don't get heard. We've all been a part of those types of groups. We want every voice heard tonight. We have multiple perspectives in this room. Very strong perspectives one way or the other, and some people in between, I'm not sure yet. But we want to honor all perspectives that are shared, even if we disagree within a group. We want to stay on our topic and our task. When we start talking about school calendar, sometimes athletics comes into mind, and some people go off target onto other different important topics. But for this purpose of this group, we're going to try to stay on task and on topic with the calendar. Ask questions to better understand. This is a strategy that is highly effective in many industries, and I suggest it here. When you're having a conversation and someone says, I strongly feel that XYZ, instead of saying, well, I disagree with you, ask questions. Well, tell me more about why you feel that strongly. Well, how does that impact your child? Or what does that mean to your summer? So try to ask questions to better understand. We need everybody to participate, and we need you to talk about this outside of advisory council. So this isn't one of those groups that don't share what we've shared here tonight outside. No, please go talk about it with whatever groups that you have within Washington Township. We want as many people to feel like they have opportunity for input, and we want you to hear as many perspectives as possible. So please share this information. And as always, attend the meetings you can, but those you can't, all of this information, the video, along with every opportunity for input and any information that we share, is always within a few days up on our website. Everything from our September meeting is on our website as well, and those opportunities for input. Obviously, as we go further into the school year, we will take down some things so that it's not confusing. For instance, tonight you're going to give opportunities to give feedback on a brand new calendar based on feedback we had last month. So that we don't confuse people in November and December, we may take down some things, especially feedback forms and things like that, that are no longer applicable. So there may be things going along that you may see disappear, but that's so it's not confusing to someone who's pulling that website up for the first time or seeing a calendar that we talked about in September and it's now December. So that's why some things may be disappearing, but it'll all make sense as we go. With that, I'm going to turn the mic over to Dr. Milliman, who's going to facilitate the study of the school calendar. He's going to share with you what in the world happened with all that wonderful, rich input that you gave last time, how we use that to bring to you the calendars that you'll see tonight, and then what your task is for the night, the most important part, the opportunity for you to give feedback. So, right. Dr. Milliman.
Good. Thank you, Dr. Woodson. As Dr. Woodson mentioned, we had a lot of feedback from our first meeting. We tried to synthesize that as best we could. You'll see some results of that this evening in a couple of new options that were born out of some of those comments. And that may spur some new conversation through the perspective of the teacher, administrator, parent, etc. So we do thank you for that. Continue to jot down questions as they come up through the slides here in the next few moments. But I would ask that you just hang on to those comments or questions, because you have administrators and parents, you have people from different perspectives at your locations. So most likely your question can be answered by someone there, or summon Dr. Woodson or myself to your table and we'll try to clarify that so we can kind of keep things flowing from this front end of the presentation, and then we'll give you time to interact and ask questions as we move forward. So I appreciate that as well. So let's just move forward here to some of the comments from last time. Let me see if I can get this. I was afraid that was going to do that. Let me see. Maybe kind of hard to see from the back, but we will have these on the website as well, and I'll try to articulate what's on the screen if you can't see it. Here's some of the feedback from our last meeting. One of them was, what if we had 1 week off in October and 1 week off in November rather than the 2-week chunks? That was a comment that came up, or question that came up. Could we have a later start date in August? Another question is about child care and the folks that provide child care for our district, AYS, YMCA, et cetera. So I'm going to take those on one at a time. And we've done a little bit of discussion and conversation with some of the folks that do provide child care and with staff members, and asked your questions to them and received their feedback. A school calendar that has 1 week off in October and 1 week off in November. Now you will notice tonight when we look at some of our new options, I did not create a new option with this particular scenario. That doesn't mean that it cannot be created, and you will notice that when we're looking at some of the districts around us, that there are districts that are looking at this option as well. So it's not something that's completely off the table, but you will not see this as a new option tonight. One of the things that we had discussed earlier was opportunities and flexibility to create catch-up opportunities for our students who may be struggling to build skills in those 2 weeks off, maybe for a few days during one of those weeks. We certainly wouldn't want to bring those students in for all of those 2 weeks, but give them an opportunity to catch up. Now, there's some logistical issues with that. There's some challenges with that financially. It's not something that we would say with 100% certainty we're going to be able to make that happen. I'll explain that a little bit later. But if you do not have the 2 week chunks, you lose that flexibility to be able to create that for your students. Creates a small window of school between Thanksgiving and winter break. Now this year would be an exception. If we took a week off around Thanksgiving, we'd come back and have about a month of school before we would leave for winter break. But as weekends and as the date falls for Christmas and Thanksgiving moves and flexes a little bit, you could have 8 to 10 days sometimes of school, maybe 13 days of school. So you come back and then you'd have a few weeks and then you'd be gone for 2 weeks. So it shortens those windows in between. So it's a definite consideration as you're looking at that option. So we want to make sure that we did at least address that. If it's something that emerges from your table and you want to see an option like that for the next time, we certainly can do that. We can certainly create that and have discussion around it. The later start date in August, which creates an ending date late in June. All right? Talking to our various constituencies, here are some responses to that particular scenario. Our advanced placement courses and international baccalaureate courses at the high school have assessments which we cannot move. The advanced placement assessments are standardized by the College Board. So every student in the country that takes advanced placement biology is taking that test in the same window of time. They're taking it primarily the first 2 weeks of May. All right? So that's a consideration, because if you are creating a schedule where you're starting later, those students are going to take that AP test the first week of May. Whether we have 4 weeks of school left, 3 weeks of school left, or 7 weeks of school left. So it's a real consideration on how many instructional days we want to provide our students before they take that extremely important assessment. So that was one of the considerations we wanted you to consider with that scenario. The number of instructional days prior to the test, as I said, are important. State standardized tests is a similar challenge. In the middle school and elementary schools, there's a window of time for our I-STEP Plus tests. At the high school level, for our end-of-course assessments in English 10, which is the new graduation requirement test, as well as the Algebra 1 end-of-course assessment, which is another graduation requirement test. We do have a windows of time to give those assessments, but moving that late start is a similar challenge to the advanced placement challenge, where there's a significant chunk of time that we could be preparing students, giving them the skills necessary to pass that test, and they may be taking that test very early in the semester. Graduation, venue, difficult to schedule in June. I have a little personal experience with this in a previous life as a high school principal. And you hate to make decisions based on logistics and scheduling of venues, but it is a reality. We graduate a lot. When you graduate 1,000 students or thereabouts, you need a big place to graduate them. And as you know, we use the Pepsi Coliseum as our graduation venue. Usually, when the high school graduations are finishing up, and again, I know this from experience, you can see the horse trailers pulling in right behind you as you're leaving, because it's the season for all of those shows and events that are happening at the fairgrounds. So the deeper you go into June, the tougher it is to schedule venues like that. We all expect the Pacers to make the playoffs again someday, so you could schedule Conseco Fieldhouse, I suppose. But trust me, if they're in the playoffs, we're going to get bumped. Okay, they're going to bump the North Central graduation for the NBA playoffs. It's going to happen. There's just very. We would have to. That's right. It would be a very, very costly venue as well. And then Mr. Licata is choking on his coffee over there as I'm even bringing that up. It's a very, very difficult challenge. Outside graduations always comes up, and I've always said, I'm not sure how families would feel about that. We'd have to publish 3 possible graduation dates because of at least 2 because of rainouts. And if you did only publish 1, they said, well, just move it inside. And I said, well, okay, you get to decide which grandmother doesn't get to come in then, because at some point we're full, So that's a real issue when you move inside on a rainy day. So it really, you hate to make that a big deal, but it is a big deal when you're talking about the end of the year and in June. Child care. I was able to speak to representatives from AYS and YMCA. They are preparing program and options for the types of calendars we're looking at as we speak. As you know, districts around us are adopting these calendars, and they are looking at programming right now to accommodate for those calendars. Really, when I spoke to both YMCA and AYS, for example, they just emphasize it's the same number of days of programming. It's essentially the same number of days away from school. There's 180 instructional days, so there's the same number of days that they're not in school. It's just a matter of reshuffling that programming and realigning it to make it work. There are some things that they would need to work with us on, such as availability of facilities. Perhaps if we centralize, for example, there's some unpredictability in how many parents would take advantage of it in those interim weeks, because it would be a new situation. So there would be some time to acclimate, but there was not any pushback or any real concern on any of the folks' part that we spoke to. Whoops. I know this is very small up there. I wasn't sure how big the screen would be, but you will have these samples at your table. You probably have already found them. Could we look at an August start? Now, you might chuckle at this one. I didn't mean to be facetious in putting this calendar together, because I moved the start date from something like July 30th to August 3rd or something like that. So the answer is yes. We didn't move it very much. Because of some of those considerations we talked about earlier in the challenges of pushing the end date so far into June. This particular calendar, for the most part, mirrors what Wayne Township has adopted for next year. It's a little bit different in their teacher days. Again, those are not written in stone. I really just wanted to make sure that we had 181 instructional days and 181 staff days. I didn't get into too much detail about where those landed. Did bring the staff day in at the end of May. But this is really essentially what the folks in Wayne Township will be on next year. There's a few minor exceptions. Could we look at a fall break at the end of the first 9 weeks? That was something that came from multiple tables last time. So we did put an option together. That would be your option C there in your packet. And you will see that the first break falls October 1st through October 12th, rather than October, I'm going to need glasses one of these days, October 22nd through the end of the month, perhaps is where we had it the last time. I can't remember exactly where we had it on the last option. So we did move that there just so you could see it on paper and discuss it. Only consideration I guess I would caution in this one is if you have children who go to neighboring districts and may not have fall breaks that line up. I would assume that parents would want to at least have some of the fall break days overlap with the district that their child attends. Perhaps not, but it's just something that you may want to consider as you discuss it. We're going to break here for a little bit and just let you talk at your tables. We'll go through a couple of the slides here before we do that. I want you to just discuss new questions you have, outlooks that you have, that you've seen these new options. Perhaps you've seen something tonight that's made you think of an option G, H. We'll talk about that in just a sec. I'd like for you to talk about things that you've heard and discussed with people in your community, parents that you've had a chance to speak with. List new questions. On the rubric at your table, you'll see that there's a form there that has feedback much like the first meeting, which was option A and option B, but we wanted your feedback on option C and option D this evening at your table. And then, of course, the summer school impact. That bullet talks about the challenge of offering catch-up opportunities for, say, our younger students and still providing transportation and a block of time for the summer school at North Central. There's only one pot of money for summer school. I don't anticipate the state giving us additional pots of money for anything. But the state has come out with guidelines that have said you can use summer school, I'm using air quotes now, but summer school funds to fund enrichment type programs throughout the school year on days like this, because there's enough districts that are going to calendars like this that those questions have been asked at a statewide level. And at this point, they will allow some of those funds to supplement those enrichment programs. But at this time, we're funding that for transportation and instruction K through 12 in the summer. So if we ran some transportation, let's say in October or March for our K through 8 students, that could cut into our ability to do that in the summer. May not eliminate it, but it could have an impact on it. So we want to be transparent about that. We want to talk about that because it is a challenge in delivering enrichment both during the year and in the summer. So that's what that bullet refers to. Again, at your table, you have examples of districts in our area and what they're looking at. And now this is way little up here, but this one's, I believe, is at your table as well. This one I think will be extremely helpful. This shows you how long their breaks are in the surrounding districts. They have 2 weeks at fall break, 2 days at fall break, 3 days at Thanksgiving, 2 days at Thanksgiving, a week at Thanksgiving. This gives you a comparison to several of the districts around the area, just kind of give you a baseline knowledge there. All right? Now, you can work on your rubrics. You can chat all you like. Raise your hand if you want Dr. Woodson and myself to walk around and answer your questions. And then I do want to bring it back together because I do have a little project for you individually after you've had time to talk at your tables. So I'll give you, I don't know, 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes. College for this one. It's a little exercise I wanted you to work on. We're going to ask 3 questions. And everybody gets 10 check marks, okay? Representing 100% of your opinion, all right? And so on the paper, you'll see you have 3 questions. And if you are a definite yes or a definite no, that's fine. Just put all 10 of your check marks in your choice. That will tell me that I am 100% behind that particular statement and 0% behind the other statement. If it doesn't matter to you, you'll spend 5 check marks in one and 5 check marks in the other because you're 50-50 on that particular item. So it's a little, I didn't want to force you into saying, I want this or I don't want that. It gives you the opportunity to say, well, I'm 64, they're coming around, Mr. Kite, they're coming around. Oh, they are. Yeah, they're coming around. So if you're 60-40, you can indicate that. If you're 70-30, you can indicate that. So it's kind of a little twist on the agree-disagree scale. So it'll just give us a picture. As Dr. Woodson said, we're not a decision-making body. We're not a voting body necessarily, but it will give us a little bit of feedback on the leanings of the group on those questions. Hopefully you've had a recorder that will have your group's responses on the benefits and challenges of the options that were put before you this evening. If you could make sure that those are in a prominent place on your table before you leave and stack up these responses, please, I would prefer that they stay anonymous unless you want to email me later. Oh! Okay, hang on. Do I need further clarification? You have 10 check marks per question, okay? 10 check marks per question. 10 check marks per, thank you, Dr. Woodson. Yes. So, I prefer to do homework in my room, or I prefer to do homework in the library. I don't care where I do homework. I'm going to put 5 check marks in the library and 5 in my room. I prefer an early start in August. I don't care. I want to remind you that you can email us questions. You can get on the website and add additional questions. Stick around and ask us some questions if you like. We appreciate your attendance this evening. Thank you.